Hello and welcome back to Talon 101. What you can see right here is range 1. Both you and your opponent are at a range where you can use most of your moves to hit each other. If I backdash once, that's now range 1.5 or range 2. And you have lesser moves that would hit the opponent here, but you can still potentially hit them and even set up for like good whiff punishes. Now the moment you hit range 3, after one more backdash, you can only use longer reaching moves because the moves you would use at range 2 wouldn't hit here like DF+3 As you can see, that's short. So going back to range 3, this is usually the spot where Hwoarang struggles a little bit because he needs to approach the opponent. And the opponent would be more than happy to like just keep Hwoarang at this distance because what's Hwoarang gonna do? He can do something like Peacekeeper. And if he does Peacekeeper, he's -7 in front of their face. And the opponent can lock him with like a DF1 or in Jin's case, F4. If we go back to range 3, what are the other stuff he can do? He can dash block. And at that point, you're still playing neutral. And ate up some frames, so the opponent's slightly at an advantage there. If we go back to range 3, what else can you do here? You can do something like a crouch dash into while standing 4. So you maintain the distance, but again, disadvantage in terms of frames. So most of the stuff that you're allowed to do the moment you hit range 3 don't exactly give Hwoarang that much of an advantage, because even like dashing up into down back 3, -1 on hit, not 0. And then if you want to get an advantage, then you're going to be doing moves like running 3. And at that point, running 3 and both running 4, if you're obvious with it, it can be telegraphed and you'll get jab floated in the air, and that's something you don't want. Now, Tekken 8 has gifted Hwoarang with a brand new move called RFF DF+3 or Black Kite, and that gives an advantage and returns back to neutral in Hwoarang's favor. That's a big deal because now instead of looking to see what the opponent can do, you can actually force some reactions here. Like if they decide to simply, let's say, jab check, right? If they jab check after you use this move at range 3, you come up faster because again, you're +1. That leaves a very interesting mix-up because now they can't jab check you. You can jab check them. Of course, you can hit them with mids and whatnot, but of course, you can also move. And not only can you move, you can also still do a Powercrush, which would be completely safe against a jab. So basically, RFF DF+3 gives Hwoarang a threat at range 3. This is a threat not in the way FF4 is a threat. I mean, FF4 is a threat, but again, the level or the degree in which it's a threat differs. Because if the opponent decides to simply walk in this instance, so we're gonna put Hwoarang already at range 3, put him in right foot forward, clean range 3 right over here, and the opponent does decide to move. So Jin's gonna jump first to give us an idea of when to start pressing a button. And you FF4 is a linear move. So like while the opponent knows you have like a demon paw-like move, they can avoid it by simply walking. But they can't do that if you start introducing this move called Black Kite, because now you hit them and they can't move anywhere. And that means they need to implement side steps into blocks, side walks into blocks, or even start do a jab float. And that's going to be the first thing you're going to encounter when you're trying to threaten an opponent or approach the opponent with RFF DF+3 in this instance. So we're going to let Jin do this recording right here. He's going to jump back into a jab. And that's supposedly going to catch RFF DF+3. That's the main counterplay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter right foot forward, forward dash, and then back dash into an RFF DF+3. To sort of simulate it. It's not the perfect simulation, but enough to show you what may potentially happen. So we're gonna restart and then press play. So play, restart. And that's the jab float. And that's the danger of RFF DF+3. So like while it is really good at stopping people from walking, if your timing is too obvious with this, because as soon as you enter RFF, your opponent's thinking, ooh, yeah, of course they're gonna throw out RFF DF+3. Why wouldn't they? Because it's gonna be a heat engager, and if I block it, I have to think about if I want to jab or if I want to move, slightly Hwoarang advantage instead of Hwoarang being the one at a slight disadvantage. The other thing they can do is to Powercrush. So if we replicate the same thing, you'll lose there. So RFF DF+3, you're running on that dance every time you're here at range 3. Or if they see you in right foot forward with some distance. Of course, the moment you're close, you can still do RFF DF+3 and those two are still a threat. But like you have other moves to like prevent them from doing those two specific things. It's just more magnified the farther you two are away from each other. So a jab and a Powercrush can beat you here. And so it's just like, okay, how do I beat it? Well, the first thing you can do to beat it is just to simply change up your timing. So if they do it, you wait for the jab, and then now you're in. Or you actually punish the jab after it comes out, or you punish the jab before it even comes out. So of course that becomes a matter of timing. Same thing with like the Power Crush. So if the opponent decides to Power Crush, that's slow timing. This is faster timing. Of course, again, closer to the opponent, but you get the point. Because either it whips or you're ahead of them in order to punish it. But you don't even need to use or switch up the timing on RFF DF+3. We did mention Peacekeeper earlier, and Peacekeeper works in tandem with RFF DF+3. So if RFF DF+3 is having a little bit of a hard time against a Power Crush and a jab, why not use a move that would approach them right away? And it approaches them really, really far. So like I'm sitting at range 4. Of course, again, you have to include the double tap on the forward. That's going to eat up some of the distance. But like even here, according to the game, this is range 3.9, 3.4. Double tap forward. So that turned into running 3. We're going to go back there again, right over here. Look at that. That's pretty far. So it's kind of like Jin, Kazuya, Double Jin FF2. It's like crazy. So now you can pair those two up together. So like you can even sit at farther ranges now, because of course RFF DF+3 doesn't hit that far. But like you can jockey for position in RFF, and they're gonna start, you know, maybe throwing out an empty jab to see what you're gonna do. So you're gonna try to potentially whiff punish the jab here. So we're gonna play it, and I'm gonna enter into RFF, and there you go, I whiff punish the jab. And if you don't whiff punish the jab, right, then at least you're still in front of their face. It's still safe. Like they can't, what do you call this, sidestep right away. So you get one of those two things. Of course, this can still lose to the jab if you're too fast. You need to beat the jab ahead of time. Same thing with like RFF DF+3, but like it allows you to do it more from a distance if they start randomly jab checking from afar, because again, they want to get that jab float, right, on RFF DF+3. You can just here, take the kick to the gut, and like that hurts a lot. Same thing applies to like the Power Crush. So if they decide to Power Crush, of course, if your timing is off, you're gonna get caught by the Power Crush. But if you're ahead, you can prevent them from even doing it, or you can just whiff punish them for throwing out the Power Crush at a far distance. Of course, you can potentially beat it as well. Again, a matter of timing, but that's more or less the basic mind game you're running on. You and your opponent are gonna see you in right foot forward, and you're gonna be like, okay, are you gonna jab float? Are you gonna do a Power Crush? Are you gonna sidestep? Because again, the sidestep will be Peacekeeper, but Peacekeeper helps RFF DF+3 against the jab float and the Power Crush, because it has a farther range in which it's allowed to whiff punish compared to RFF DF+3. But it's like, okay, they're not just gonna do that, right? Yeah, of course, they're not just gonna do that. The other thing the opponent would do is to approach you. So this recording right here is of Jin jumping, backdashing, and then jabbing into, or dashing into Demon's Paw, FF2. And if you're just sitting around in right foot forward, you can keep them out with backlash. So now you're also adding backlash into this mix-up, or even double claymore in right foot forward. And double claymore might be the one that's preferred, because again, they have to wait for the second kick. So like if you throw out the first kick, you're like, do I whiff punish that? But of course, again, the second hit doesn't have any armor. So like if they're on point, then yeah, you could get punished for like simply throwing out the first kick, because again, you're throwing it out in distance, and if they didn't press a button there as they're trying to approach you, if they just simply dash block and it whiffs, then yeah, you're in trouble. But like if they block it as they dash block, then yeah, you're completely fine. But if you throw out backlash and they dash block, they may not be on time to potentially whiff punish this. So now you can just like sit around here like, hey, I want to throw out Peacekeeper, and I'm trying to like gain the range and preventing you from like even approaching me until I'm sitting at a range where I'm allowed to throw RFF DF+3. And you can still use other moves as well to keep out. Of course, famously, DF2. So like if you're in right foot forward here, again, don't mind the short distance, but like as they're approaching, you can do that. You can do RFF 244. So like if they're like jab whiffing, right? They're whiffing to like get that jab float, you can do the same. And then even stuff like down back 3, it could potentially counter hit depending on like which move they're using. So here it will counter hit, and lethal skyrocket or JFSR depending on your timing. That one I lose here. Here we're just gonna move it a little bit faster, and then yeah. But of course, the moment they are second guessing, right? If your opponent is second guessing and like they're just moving around, that allows you to not just do stuff here while waiting. You take advantage of this now. So like you don't have to take advantage with like RFF DF+3, because again, you're going into neutral, right? You wanna take frames. So like the moment you're here and you've introduced all of that, now you can suddenly just do running 3 out of nowhere. And that's still fast, by the way. Like that comes out really, really fast. Because if you just dash block and you're like doing stuff like this and throwing out moves like that, and then suddenly just do that, your opponent could be caught off guard. Now, of course, it has the same risk as RFF DF+3, wherein it can get jab floated. So if like your opponent randomly heat bursts here and they didn't cancel it, right? As you suddenly approach them, then yeah, you're gonna get floated for a combo. But that's the risk you take. So if you don't want to do something like running 3 or even running 4 in these places to take advantage of second guessing, then you can always just simply dash up in right foot forward, or even cancel it out to go into left foot forward and still mix it in with all the other approach tools that exist. So now you can even do stuff like FF3, and then FF3 still has like the RFF DF+3, so like it's really good with moves, have pushback. So the only thing you want to be worried about is how you're spacing your RFF DF+3, because remember, your opponent knows you're going for it. So don't be too obvious in wanting to take your RFF DF+3. You may end up with a really short black kite, and it's just like, man, if it was only a pixel or a centimeter, inch closer towards the opponent, then yeah, I would have been able to like live. So yeah, so note the distance and don't be too obvious with wanting it, because you're gonna be utilizing movement a lot in this situation. But like you can push the opponent towards the wall here, because they're gonna start backdashing to like take away the range, and like, oh, the only thing you can do, like if you're at this distance, would be something like Peacekeeper, and even Peacekeeper like whiffs in this instance. So it just becomes movement. So the more you can continue to like threaten this, even with other movement, you can reposition them and even use the frames to your advantage along with everything else. So yeah, that it just adds another layer to Hwoarang's approach game, because again, he can be at an advantage this time instead of being the one at a disadvantage when he's approaching. Of course, besides that, but when that was a risk, and this still has some risk, but it's a little bit better and alleviated with the fact that you have more stuff to work with it. Yeah, that's Black Kite, or the RFF DF+3 Mixup. That's everything I know about it. Again, I've been Frontier, and thank you for watching.